Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we are going to continue preparing for Chanukah in the light of Rabbi Nachman's story of Oreach Nechnas, of the guest who enters. And like we saw, the entire experience of the guest entering is the outside entering into the inside and the inside suddenly being transformed into the outside. Generally speaking, those answers, that certainty orientation that we desire so desperately in order to live assuredly with knowledge and wisdom and all of the things that we can identify scientifically, rationally, et cetera, all of that is associated with the inside of our lives, with a sense of being at home within the comfort of the four walls of my home. Because within my home, I am able to arrest or control the chaos of the outside. The outside represents, to one degree or another, the untamed nature of reality, the teva itself, which will perpetually be itself, which is olam keminhago noheg, that the minhag of the olam continues to be what it is in spite of the fact that it appears to be unfair and devoid of mishpat and reason. Ultimately, the thing that nature does is it naturally is itself perpetually, and that brings about all of the frightening changes and variables and the things that we're not in control of. It's typically associated with the nighttime when the wild creatures of the forest emerge. So all of these notions of outsideness, of wilderness, of the thicket, of being covered over in darkness with trees, with clouds, all of those are oriented towards the outside, towards the chutz. That's the nature of something that is not inside of me, but rather uncontrolled by me. It is outside. The home, the attempt that we have to create a semblance of order in our lives, is the rational attempt to make space for meaning, to create a symptom, to create a bias, to create a home where I can arrest the chaos of the outside and I no longer have to let it in. I know where things are in my home. It's a habitat. There's habit that is cultivated there. I don't have to question where I'm going to be going to sleep. I don't have to question where utensils are. It's a sense of at-homeness, of a sense of being unified with a sturdy ground where I can lock my doors, etc. And suddenly, with the emergence of a guest, it becomes a threshold of the meeting point between the inside and the outside. The host knows who they are. The host knows what they're in control of. They feel like they're the Bal Habayis. And suddenly an intruding guest comes. He doesn't knock on the door necessarily, but he barges in and he suddenly brings the outside with him. There's a sense of wonder, a sense of confusion, a sense of disorientation and displacement. I thought that inside was outside and now outside is inside and everything is transformed and above is below and below is above. And I thought I knew who this person was, but I don't know who this person was. And suddenly it's the host themselves who's displaced from their home, and the territory of comfort and sturdiness is suddenly transformed into the chaos of flying and flights of fancy without any control. And this is really what the light of Hanukkah is about. It's our confrontation. It's the moment where the threshold, the doorpost, the Pesach Habayis that separates the outside and the inside trusts and is vulnerable enough out of a sense of urgency and necessity, because there was no other way other than to survive with this vulnerability, but it becomes a porous boundary. We allow the outside to enter into the inside, and we allow ourselves to be displaced by that wonder that has entered in, by that Pella Elyon, by that thing that is above and beyond rational knowledge, that thing which disrupts my natural sense of stability, but places me into a place of dreaming and imagination and fear and concern and redemption. And so what happens when we encounter the night? What happens when the night suddenly invades the day and it comes to destroy the day? The clarity of the day is overwhelmed by the night. So we said yesterday that first and foremost, there has to be a stage of acclimating to the darkness, not cursing the darkness. It is fundamentally significant to understand that it is unwise to curse the darkness because it won't change anything, as Rav Kook Schlusia Ganalinu pointed out. Darkness is the Metzias, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as we're going to see, created the world through darkness. The world starts with darkness prior to day. This is one of the first teachings that Chazal give us in Maseches Brachos, which is meant to introduce us into Torah Sheba'al Peh, which itself is referred to as darkness. So darkness, Vayerev Vayiboker, is a fundamental element of existence. It's a fundamental Bria B'fnei Atzmo, as the Vilna Gaon tries to understand and clarify in the beginning of his commentary, as well as by Makas Choshech, whether darkness is the presence of a concealment or simply the absence of revelation. Is it the absence of light or the presence of something that covers over the light, to mean that it's a creation in and of itself? And what the Gra seems to point out is that there are two levels of darkness. There's the cessation of light, which is the absence of illumination, and then there's the sense of darkness, the night that comes, the night that folds onto a person and brings with it that concern that we spoke about yesterday, that the grandson of the Beis Yaakov needed to understand the deep teaching of that there's nothing to be afraid of. So first and foremost, we can't be surprised by the darkness. A person cannot close their eyes as a result of the darkness that they encounter in the world, because the darkness is a natural part of the world. It's a natural element of the Metzias through which HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. Light and darkness are part and parcel of the same day. Revelation and concealment are part and parcel of the same pulsation that enables the infinite to express itself within the realm of the finite, without the infinite negating the finite, and without the finite kind of negating or minimizing the infinite. It's the secret of revelation for the sake of concealment, and concealment for the sake of revelation. And a natural byproduct and symptom of that is going to be the darkness and the various stages that a person experiences it in their lives. So acclimating oneself to the darkness is realizing that my job is not to run away from the darkness right now. My job is not to deny the reality of darkness. My job is not to claim that darkness doesn't exist and it's just a mirage of my faulty human imagination. No, darkness is a metzias. There is a hastara shabbatay hastara. What the Baal HaTanya refers to this world as a choshech kafulu mechupel. It's a doubled over darkness, so that lest you think that it's not a real darkness, dig through that darkness and then you come to find another level of darkness, just to reinform you that the darkness is a metzias through which HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals himself, and we can't be surprised by it, and we can't throw a tantrum when we encounter it, and we can't pretend like children that if I turn my eyes away from it for long enough, it will just disappear. The darkness is something that needs to be acknowledged and moved through in order to reveal the gifts that it offers, as we're going to see as we move forward closer to Chanukah. So the first stance, the first preparatory stage is acclimating oneself to the darkness, preparing myself. Okay, it's dark right now, Rabbanu Shlalem, so I'm just going to have to uncover the new tools that are necessary for me to make my way through the darkness, the illuminating elements in my life, whether it be Torah, Tefillah, family, Amunah, Bitachon, his Gabrus, his Kashrus, Nigun, singing, contemplation, Torah, writing, whatever it is. I need to uncover the tools that will help me move through the darkness and help me continue to find myself in spite of the fact that I've lost myself for a moment. That's the first stage, acclimating to the darkness, learning to see the outlines of a redemption that is burgeoning, to see the outlines of the shapes. Because when I encounter darkness for the first time, I assume that it has taken all of my vision. And in that moment, that's where hopelessness emerges, and that's where the blindness assaults the individual. But when a person slowly but surely is patient with themselves and allows themselves to stay sturdily and affixed in their position, and not to run around in the chaos of it all, and not to lose my mind, but rather to stand still and to contemplate the darkness and to let my eyes blink a little bit, suddenly I come to find that I can still see the outlines of shapes. I still have my moichin to me. It might be a moichin dekatness, it might be a trace of a previous level that is now departed, but as we've learned so often, the trace of something is the way that we re-access the thing, even though it's not there anymore. By digging into the irreducible trace of it, we uncover the light that is always there. And so the recognition of darkness and the ability to see the outlines and the shapes of redemption and knowledge and access within the darkness itself is the first stage. That's the acclimation to darkness. And the second preparation, as we're going to see, because ultimately the hero of the story is still the host. The hero of the story is still the host, because it's the host that was displaced. It's the host that is suddenly assaulted by the realization that, wow, what I thought is inside is really outside, and what I thought was Rishus HaYachid is really Rishus HaRabim, what I thought was light was really dark, and what I thought was high was really low. And we see the traumas that he's going through, up and down, confusion, here, there, everywhere. Where am I? How am I? What am I? Where am I? What is this? All of the questions that assault the self in its own subjectivity, that we allow ourselves to be placed into question. But then what we find at the core of the story, really at the end point, after all of the up and down and the ambiguity and the doubt that covers over the narrative, we find that the host, who has now been displaced because the guest has now revealed that in truth nobody is host except for the Lord of hosts, for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we see the guest kind of come to a conclusion. He says to him, Amar lo, this is a wondrous thing in my eyes. Harayani Khan, here I am. What does it mean that you're going to me? My entire concept of spatial orientation and temporal orientation has been shattered. Hey Shivlo. When you wanted to go with me, I engarbed you in a levush of Gan Eden, and I gave you access to all of those ha'aros. And then when you came back down, you were still orienting yourself towards your body and towards your limited self. And then the host, who has been displaced, says as follows: Ve'eni yodeya me'eza olamhu. I still do not know which world he comes from. Me'olam toivhu bevadai. But what I am certain of is that it is a good world. Va'adayin loy nigmar veloy nistayim. Yet the story has not been completed and it has not been told in its totality. So what we're encountering here is the secret of not only learning how to acclimate to the darkness, but how to laugh at the darkness. That once I come to a place of realization that I can still see within the dark, I can still see the outlines of redemption and light, even when I find myself tossed down into the darkening territories where I thought those things were gone. The next step is learning to laugh at the darkness. The next step is taking the darkness seriously, acknowledging the reality of the darkness, understanding the role that the darkness plays, feeling the emotions and the feelings and the experiences that are motivated through the encounter with darkness, changing the things that I can change in order to alleviate the pain of the darkness, yet the capacity to accept the things that I cannot change, and with the deep wisdom of knowing the difference and really learning to be in the darkness and understanding that it is part and parcel of the framework in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to reveal him in this world, or the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to reveal himself to me. We are operating still within the Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Le'am Vod, the secret of the lower unity, which demands a profound level of divine revelation in order to create the constriction and the limitation necessary to allow us to choose to encounter HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That the first 24 days of Kislev are as fundamentally a part of the experience of Chanukah as Yom Chafei, which is Shema Yisrael. That's the work of Choshech. This is the work of working through the preventions of the mind, the forgetfulness of the mind, the not enoughness of the mind, the chaos of the mind, the hiddenness of the mind, the inability to perform what we need to do in any public sense because of the shame of the mind. All of those hargashos, all of those feelings that grow in their darkening power in order to reveal the beauty and the grandeur of the sudden emergence of light that will come on Hanukkah, that is the preparatory stage for the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light. And once we know that, once we are aware that the choshech, in spite of the fact that it is choshech, and in spite of the fact that it's a real choshech, and it feels like choshech, and it continues to feel like choshech, nevertheless, it is a role. There is a role that the choshech is playing. There is a tachlis to the choshech. The choshech is there to be megala and or afterwards in the secret of Yisrain ha'or min ha'choshech daika, that the light that comes about out of the darkness is going to be a far more profound and potent element of light that would not have been able to be revealed without the preceding darkness. And when a person is able to contextualize the darkness, it doesn't negate the pain or the frustration or the terror of all of the things that a person naturally feels in the concealment of their mind and their own most isolation and solitude at the heart of the night. But what it does is it gives it context. And by contextualizing the struggle, it softens the struggle. I am no longer kicking and screaming my way through the darkness as some unfortunate symptom of an accidental reality, but I am allowing myself to settle into it, to sit there, to gaze at it. And then once I realize that it's part of a larger picture and that it's not the end all be all and that it's not an endless choshech, but rather there's an end, kates sham lechoshech, that there's going to be an end to the choshech because the ultimate purpose of it is to be megala and or, at that moment I'm able to laugh at the choshech. I'm able to realize that it is nowhere near as serious and as valuable and as essential as I previously assumed, because it works at the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The darkness is an expression from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It works at the service of revelation. It's part and parcel of the secret of Chesed Oilam Nivra, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to create a world of goodness and of light, and the Choy Katov Lehetiv, and the Simcha Amitis that is niskala in every moment of understanding that I live in this world. The Balatanya writes that the Iker Giloi of the Simcha and the timing of Chanukah is coming to terms with the fact that every second that I am alive in the bareness of my existence is a far deeper pleasure than any imaginable pleasure that can be experienced through the delicacies or the pleasures of the flesh. The only reason that aliveness and plain and pure existence doesn't allow us to be overwhelmed with a tainug about the chayus itself, about my vitality itself, is because we're no longer aware of the perpetual flow in which our chayus and our vitality is perpetually coming down and ascending, coming down and ascending, and that in truth each and every moment is a brand new emergence into existence and into being for the first time as it descends and recedes into the horizon for the next moment of existence and being to be uncovered. Because I see that as a singular movement, it's an aspect of tainug tamidi eno tainug, that the pleasure feels perpetual because I'm no longer aware of the distinctions between time and the durational change between one moment of being to the next. And the work of Chanukah is ad shetichla that I can become aware of the fact that each and every moment offers a tainug nifla that is greater than any imaginable pleasure, simply with the bare awareness of being, simply with the basic fact that my legs are on the ground, that I take up space, that I have a width and a height, and I have a conscious mind that is contemplating thoughts, and those contemplative thoughts bring me in contact with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. These are the elements. These are the basic things that we work on as we're moving towards the light. This is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to reveal in the Welt. And therefore, when Choshech is experienced, if we understand what the end result of all things is, so then Choshech softens itself. It's not as frightening. It doesn't feel as intense anymore. I'm able to laugh at it. I don't take it too seriously anymore. I'm not such a heavy rationalist that demands to have a basic understanding of every ounce of Choshech that seeps into the reality in the historic process of experience. Because if I had to try and do that, I would be overwhelmed, and it would be azavadati bi'oni. It's only with the ability of being medaleg al hachoshech, of looking at the choshech and laughing at the choshech, that enables me to break it up and allows me to see that the outlines of light that are emergent, that I come to understand through the acclimation towards darkness, in truth allows me to laugh at darkness a little bit. And we're going to come back to exactly what the Balabaya said and why this is revealed. But first, we're going to make recourse to another part of Rabbi Nachman's story, which is a story from Rabbi Nachman called Ben Melech Ben Shivcha Shenichlafu. It's an insane story and a wondrous story of the son of a king and the son of a pauper who were switched at birth, and the different experiences of wealth and impoverishment and power and powerlessness, and how ultimately fate and destiny are intertwined. And it reveals a profound level of understanding of what Bina is and what Chachma is, and what concern is, and what fear is, and what Emunah is, and what Bitachon is. And it brings a person directly into the Kodesh HaKadoshim of the Gan, of the secret, and the tree in the center of the Gan that rests at the heart of the story, and the chair that sits under the tree in the heart of the Gan, and the rose that sits underneath that chair that has to be placed back onto the chair, which is the secret of elevating Malchus back up to itself. But for now, what we're going to do is find ourselves in an element of the narrative that is somewhat decontextualized, but it really reveals a lot of what we're trying to say. We're speaking about somebody who finds himself stuck in a forest, and he climbs up a tree in order to protect himself from the incoming darkness, and he finds another person there, a forest individual, again, not knowing what world this person is from, not knowing if he's good, if he's bad, if he's going to swallow me whole, if he's going to be kind. And the experience goes as follows: Lifnois Boiker, as the day began to emerge after the night, Shama Kol Chuka, he heard a laughing voice, Gedoyla Ma'oid Ma'oid, a profound cackle, a profound laughter that was moving through the entirety of the forest. Haya Mispashetet Kol Chuka al Kol Haya'ar, and the echo of this profound laughter, this cackle at the moment that day breaks from within the night, was a tremendous laughter. And it was a chukah gedola ma'oid ma'oid. That ma'oid ma'oid is toiv ha'aretz ma'oid ma'oid of shifla sa'adam ma'oid ma'oid having ma'oid ma'oid shafei ruach. It's the secret of gesher tsar ma'oid ma'oid, because ma'oid is the intensity that allows for the production of something to be revealed in a more intense and powerful way. And here's this very, very powerful laugh, to the degree that the tree began to shake as a result of this laughing voice. And this person was terrified of this laughter that emerges in the forest at the moment that day breaks from within the night. And this other person who he found standing in the tree before him says, I'm not afraid of this whatsoever, because I've already been here a few nights. And every day, as the day gets a little bit closer, nishma kol hachuka hazeh, you hear this intense form of laughter. Until all of the trees and all of the parts of the forest are shaken with fear. Nisbail ma'oid ve'amar lechavero. And he says suddenly to his friend, Hadavar nira shazehu makom yaduim. This appears to be a place of demons. This appears to be a place of fantasy. Because in the place of living clearly, we don't hear a voice like this. Because whoever heard of a laughter that ascends throughout the entire world? And as the story continues, and as they get to know each other a little bit more, and they encounter life within that forest, they find the healer, they find the tzaddik in the forest, and he comes to feed them. And they slept there. When the morning came, they heard that tremendous cackle, that laughter that breaks the night and the day apart. mazim, until all of the trees were shaking. V'hisitu l'shoyles ha'adam haya'ar mazos, and they decided they were going to ask the man of the forest exactly what this noise was. V'sha'alu, and they asked him, Ma kol hachuka hagedola hazeh soymech l'boker, what is this tremendous laughter that emerges every day prior to sunbreak? V'heshiv lo, and he answers them, Zehu chuka, this is the laughter, shahayoim soichik min halayla, because it's the secret of the day that's laughing at the night. Shahalayla shayala sasayom, because the night is always asking the day, Madua kesha'ataba ein li shem, why is it light that when you arrive, that I no longer have a name, that choshech can't be understood anymore? Azahayoim soichik v'oisech chuka gedola. And in response to that question of why the darkness loses its identity in the presence of the light, so the light laughs at it, and it makes a tremendous choik. And then day comes in. And this is the voice of laughter. And it was wondrous in his eyes, because this is a wondrous thing. That the day is going to be laughing at the night. But this is exactly what we need to do when we're able to orient ourselves to the experience of that there's a nighttime that comes, and there's the noise of the forest that emerges, and that there's life in Baal Shem Tov and Malchus Olam and all of the concealment that it brings. When I'm aware of that, I can begin to laugh at it even before it's over. I begin to crack it up. I begin to take it a little bit less seriously. I begin to see the darkness, but call it on its bluff, to realize that, yeah, you're dark, but I'm still myself here. And we uncovered the secret of Gam Choshech Lo Yashkech Mimcha, that yes, there's darkness, but even darkness is not going to darken you from me, because I find you in the darkness, Rabbanu Shalom. This is where I learned to have faith in you. This is where I learned the secret of laughing at the darkness in order to bring about the light. That the day's answer to the darkness says, why is it that I lose my name when you arrive? The light doesn't answer the darkness. The light just does what it does. It laughs at the darkness, and that's what brings about the day. It's the ability to minimize the darkness, not to ignore it, not to repress it, not to suppress it, but to minimize it in and of itself, to call it on its bluff and to face it without concern, like the grandson of the Beis Yaakov, who looked out into the darkness of the night, and his Zaydi told him, do not be afraid of anything. It doesn't mean that there's no reason to be afraid. Al tira of the Yaakov, there's a reason to be afraid. It's a world of choshech, it's a world of laila, it's a world of chayos hayar, it's a world of concealment and rational demand for certainty. And if that's my central point of focus, then this world is going to be chaotic and traumatic every second, because there is no certainty. But to learn the laughter of the day as it moves away from the night, to reveal that even the night is not anything other than a revelation of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, that Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Olam Vayed, the concealment of Yichud Tata that is emergent out of the tzimtzum itself, out of the very function of choshech and its highest root, is still nothing but a revelation of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. And then we begin to create the vessels. Then we begin to laugh. Then we begin to see that all of the edges of darkness, all of the thresholds between the inside and the outside, are ultimately going to take us to a place of redemption, that everything is perpetually moving forward. And this comes back to the affirmative secret at the heart of the Ma'aseh Me'areach, that after all of the trauma and the up and down and the nighttime and the flying and the outside and the inside, and the sudden belief that the inside is returning only to have it broken open again by the outside that returns, to lose hope, and the hope that I found even after my hopelessness, etc., etc. Suddenly, in the end of the story, he says, and I still don't know what world this person is from, but it is certainly from a good world. It is certainly from a good world. After all is said and done, the way to laugh at the choshech is to say, no matter where the choshech is taking me, no matter what it is certainly leading to light. It is certainly good. It is certainly from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It is the secret of Megala Amukos mine choshech, that there's a hisgalus of depth that comes out of the choshech itself, not negating the choshech, not saying that there's a light in the choshech. We're not there yet. First we acclimate to the darkness, then we learn how to look at the darkness without taking it too seriously and to laugh at it, and then we come to realize that the light is hidden in the darkness, but we're not there yet. Then the light emerges and it illuminates the darkness, which we're going to see on Chanukah. But here we're just learning to laugh at the darkness, not running away from it, but being soichik at it, laughing at it, like Yitzchak Avinu laughed at it, like David Malka Mashiach, who was the Badchen of the Melech, who looked darkness in the face, as the Chidush Harim says, that David Malka Mashiach loved to stroll on the boundary point between heaven and hell, at that threshold between Rishus HaYochid and Rishus HaRabim, at that place of Ragle de Tarmadoyi, that place of the Shuk, that place of forgetfulness, that place of death, that place of Gehenna, that place of Ben Hashmashos, that place of confusion and darkness and the doubled over concealment of the mind. It's specifically there that we learn to laugh. And from here, Rabbi Nosson says that the Ikra Avoida of Chanukah is to laugh the laughter of the day as the night falls apart. That's the secret of playing playing dreidel. That's the secret of destabilizing ourselves, of not taking ourselves too seriously, to allow ourselves to feel the darkness enough to come to the place of Ki'ata Ta'ir Neiri HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I am the dark candle. I am your candle prior to light. Hashem Eloika Yagia Chashki. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, illuminate my darkness. I'm not asking you, Hashem, to take away my darkness yet. I'm not asking you to take me out of the darkness completely. I'm asking you to help me laugh at the darkness, to find the light within the darkness, to allow it to crack open with light, to allow the darkness to tear itself asunder, and for Choshech to be Megala Milsa on the deepest level of Or, in the secret of Gam Choshech Lo Yashkech Mimcha. And then what we're going to discuss tomorrow, Be'ezras Hashem, after we uncover the secret of the affirmative stance of saying yes to every moment, even in the darkness, and saying, Hashem, I don't know where the darkness comes from. I don't know who this person is. I don't know how I'm supposed to be. I don't know who I am, but I know that it's Bevadai Tov. I grab hold of the light of certainty that exists within the depths of doubt and uncertainty itself, because when I become okay with the uncertainty, at that point I can learn to transform the suffix into sipuk, the concealment and the doubt of the mind, into the realization that I'm always going to be in doubt and I'm always going to be confused, and Mamela, I can find satisfaction with what I have right now. And that's when the Ireach is able to say, whatever it is that's happening, it's certainly from a good place, because the ultimate secret of Chanukah is the chesed that HaKadosh Baruch Hu used to create the world, the light that emerged in the beginning, that was kindled for the righteous, that was then concealed, the Or HaGanas, that hidden light that rests at the heart of everything. And this is the secret of Chanukah. But again, in order to allow the laughter of Chanukah, which is the day shattering the night open, in order to allow that joke to be really, really funny, we have to continue to experience the Choshech as if it's real to a certain degree, to experience it, to feel it, to be present in it, to be mitmoded with it, to find HaKadosh Baruch Hu in it, to dive into HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the aspect of mi betan sha'ol sha'avasi and the she'amalas mi mamakim and the tefillah liani kiyatov, all of these motivating factors and the urgency that comes about from the katisha of the zayat, that crushing of the zayat, that concealment, that eitzarahi the Yaakov mimeni yivashaya, the kalim that are necessary to receive and reveal the light. All of this is necessary. This is the Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Olam Va'ed that precedes and enables us to really experience the light of Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. And so we have to learn to laugh, to affirm the goodness at the heart of whatever darkness we feel, to uncover the secret of the day that's cracking up at the night, which is in truth the way that the day breaks the night open to reveal the light of God that exists within all things. Any element of Choshech must be dealt with, must be addressed, must be made small enough for me to deal with it, must be separated from me so that I can look at it objectively, so that I can ultimately laugh at it and sweeten it and elevate the Choshech back up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and to be mamtik the tzimtzum with the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to reveal how the tzimtzum itself is an or that's preparatory for the lighting of the candle. And we uncover the secret of Ki'ata Ta'ir Neiri HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You are the one who is going to illuminate my candle. Hashem Eloika Yagia Chashki. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I have my Choshech, it's my own Choshech, but help me illuminate it. As the Malbim points out, that Yagia is a language of illuminating something that was presently dark and not illuminated, and then taking that very dark thing and using it to be the source of illumination. And this is the second stage. After acclimating to darkness, it's learning to laugh at the darkness, to take it seriously enough to beat it and to call it on its bluff, to break free from it, and to reveal the Schoik HaElyon at the heart of all things in the secret of Batischak Liyom Acharon Be'ezras Hashem.